All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast. For today's show, have the return guest, my brother Billy Mandarino, and we were saying, can't believe it's been 2 years, but it was such a timeless connection that it does feel like yesterday. So, Billy, so great to be able to share the space with you again. Have you back on the show. I'm grateful for our connection, and to see where we end up today.
Brother, it's truly my honor. I love how the universe, divine will works, and it just things happen exactly how it's supposed to happen. And this timeless now, it doesn't feel like 2 years has gone by. I just feel inspired and honored to be on your show, brother. I appreciate all you put out in the world and all the good intentions, the vibes, the teachings that you put out. Thank you for being that person in the world.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I appreciate that, and thank you as well. And you mentioned the word timelessness. Now, that's something I want to jump into. Maybe I guess we could start if you wanted to talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, where your focus has aligned. I mean, obviously that "who am I" question is an existential one in the sense that there's never a proper answer on that, right? But how you would answer it 2 years ago might be different than now. But maybe especially, I think there's a lot of new listeners who maybe haven't tuned into that first one because just to, I guess, give people a little idea about your own background and where you're coming from, and I'd say where your focus is aligned in the now, and especially how you show up for.
Perfect. Absolutely. No, I'm going to answer the question you asked, which is who am I, right? We all ask that question. It's an existential question that if you're not asking that question, I don't think you're really tapping into who you really are. Yeah. We get caught up in this linear, time-bound, past, future, linear, chronological timeline of our life. And that's, to me, I found that's where all the stress is. That's where the overwhelm is, the anxiety. Your timing is never good when you're caught up in time. And for me, I've answered that question many times, and I've helped people, given people clues to answering that question. And for me, it's all in the question itself. It's a little bit of a riddle. And I think that's what we all scratch our head and think about it and try to go deep into our life's experience and try and figure out what it means. Who am I? What is my purpose? What is this random blimp of, they call it a parentheses in eternity for me? Because when you think about time and how many, billions of years have gone by, and then here we are for maybe 100 years, if we're blessed to have that experience, it's kind of a blip. But the question, who am I, is answered when you read it in reverse.
Who am I? I am who?
I am, oh. Who am I? You read it backwards, you write it backwards. It's I am, oh, like, oh my God. Oh, you're right, I am. And I am is the name of God. You go to Exodus, God says his name in only one place, or her name, whatever you prefer to believe, in one place in the Bible. I am that I am. It's one place in Exodus. He says it to Moses when Moses says, who shall I tell them has sent me? And he says that my name is I am that I am, and that will be my name for all generations to come. I will go by no other name. So when you think, who am I? And you read it backwards, I am. Oh, ultimately, God said, I am that I am, meaning I am that I am, pointing the finger at Evan, pointing the finger at Billy, pointing the finger at whoever is listening or viewing this at the moment. I am that I am. I am everything. I am the all and the all of all. I am everything that has ever been and ever will be. When it comes to sentient beings, creatures, God is in everything. So when you realize that you are God and you don't consider it to be blasphemous, because I've been raised in Mormon, Catholic, all these different churches I've been raised in my life. And it took me a while to get to that place where I felt like I wasn't being blasphemous. I am that I am. To say that I am God is not blasphemous. It's not robbery. I mean, in quote scriptures, Jesus says, is it not written in your laws that I say that you are gods? And further, it says in the New Testament that being in the form of God, considered it not robbery to be equal with God. That's what Jesus said. So he's telling us in all these different, seems like parables and analogies that you are the I am that I am. So when I think, who am I? And I realize that I am that I am. Think about the power. If you could say, I mean, not that you are this guy in a white beard, this cosmic bellboy, if you will, that's answering my prayers and answering all my wishes when I pray to him. If you realize that you come from the source, you return to the source. It's just like if you're in the ocean, you only way to experience the ocean is to be one with it. You can't grasp water, it eludes you. You have to immerse yourself. You have to become one with it. That's why we are 70% water and the planet Earth is 70% water. There's so many signs and symbols, and I love all of that. Synchronicities in the world. So to answer that question, it's pretty simple for me, and it's how I've answered it for the last probably decade. Once I learned that from some great teachers that I've studied, and from me, living that way, living as a Nowist, the I am that I am. It's part of the Now-ist meditation that I created. It's a 1-minute meditation. If you go to billymandarino.com, you can learn all about it. We did a live seminar from here in San. It's just been my mission to teach people how to live as Nowists. It's not a religion. It's just a way of life. It's a practice of living in that I am presence as a way of life, out of time. And it's been my mission since the book came out in 2018 to get this message. That's why I'm so honored to be on your podcast, Evan. I've been blessed to be on a lot of podcasts and speak all over and just continually bring this message and this teaching, because it's my purpose, it's my dharma to help this world get out of the overwhelm, the stress, anxiety, and the fear that we are all living in.
Absolutely. And, it feels, even since the last time we chatted a couple of years ago, we see sort of the growing polarities and division and a lot of people really attaching to, I think, some of those stressors or old models of self-identification. But you're also seeing a lot of people approach that who am I question. I think as there's been an uprooting of the foundation of what we thought was, reality, a lot of us were sort of living in a very, I would say, timeline. We thought we had it figured out, right? And as soon as there's this external chaos, external noise that uproots the foundation of how we were used to living, it's like, oh, maybe I'm not who I thought I was. Maybe this world isn't what I thought it was. Oh, I'm starting to see beyond certain curtains that I hadn't recognized were there before. Let me explore this. So that who am I question, it really does almost take the center for, I think, any sort of self-discovery process. But I would say even an extension to that, really cultivating a deeper sense of meaning and purpose, right? And I do my own writing and whatnot, and the Substack I started was called Deeper Meaning for that reason, to explore the meaning within it all, to explore how to open ourselves to this deeper reality, because I think that is what people intuitively are craving. And it's like they already know it to be the truth. When you say,
well, congratulations real quick on your book, Evan, that just came out. I'm so excited. You're a published author. I'm so honored to get one of your early, copies of it. And I'm so inspired by you. I'm inspired by people that take that leap, because writing a book is a pretty big deal. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of passion, patience, and it's serving people. And I love that that's your heart too.
I appreciate that. And I know you have been through that process with the Now-ist. And well, it's kind of funny because it's a poetry collection, and how it came together was, I write a lot of poetry for myself and my own self-expression. And just one day I sort of had the realization, like, oh, this could really flow. This kind of flows all together when I was looking at different poems, and I'm like, this could probably all be in one sort of little collection. And so, I just did more of an organization process, really, because a lot of it had already been written, and a lot of it, some of it was written at the time of our last podcast. So, it's been sort of an accumulation of the almost, I would say, the hero's journey type of archetypal journey for myself, and really engaging in this know thyself process in a lot of ways. But I appreciate it. And a big thing for me has been sort of, I think poetry for me represents the step into that timeless space and timelessness. And that's an idea I've really been playing with. Like, what does it mean to live in the present moment in awareness? It means to actually step out of time, like we've kind of already alluded to. It means to live in timelessness. And I mean, that's something I look at the work you're doing, like that is directly the center of, being a Nowist. That is the center of everything that you're working on. I mean, so I would love to hear more about how you've, I'd say, cultivated that sense of timelessness and what that represents for you and what that sort of means. Because I think it's such an important, I'd say, realm to play in ultimately.
I would love to answer that question, but first, can people pick up your book on Amazon like I did? Where's the best place to get your
Yeah,
book?
Amazon. It's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble website, and then you can get it directly from the publishing website. But Amazon's easiest, and I have it
Okay,
in.
then give them the title, just, because you
Yeah,
probably promoted it, but I want to help promote your book because I'm
no,
inspired by it.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah,
What's the
so
name of your title? How would they find it? Just go to
the
Amazon and type what?
so you can either type my name directly, Evan McDermott, it'll pop right up, or the Mystical Collection, poems on love, freedom, and awakening, and
Yes,
it's right
let's
there.
go.
And I just got my own copy. It took a little while to get mine. I don't know what the delay was, but there it is for anybody who's watching the
Beautiful.
video. And it's kind of cool to hold your own book in your hands. Like,
Isn't it? I remember that feeling too. Just that when you open it up out of the box, it just like it has an energy of its own, and you
yeah,
just feel it like, this
yeah.
magical thing. And that's, speaking of books, that's the wonderful book that I read. Speaking about the I am, Nisargadatta Maharaj wrote this book called I Am That. And I highly recommend that, as well as Evan's book. But Nisargadatta Maharaj is an amazing spiritual teacher. And this book, I Am That, is so powerful. And he was telling his devotees that, hey, you don't even have to read it. Just keep it. Just keep it in your glove box. Hold it. Just the energy in this book is going to help your life. So I offer that up to all deep books. They have an energy, and words have energy of their own. And if you like, obviously the Bible, the Tao Te Ching, great deep wisdom teachings have an energy. So carrying them with you and having them with you is important, because words have power. There's actually a physical energy in those words. And deep books are living and breathing beings. So make sure you don't discount the power of books, good books.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question about timelessness, right? How to be in timelessness. Well, what I teach with the Now-ist teachings and the Now-ist principles is through the Now-ist symbol. It's a symbol. It's a kind of a technology of how to get out of time. And if you look at the Now-ist symbol, I'm going to pull it up because we've got people viewing. So here's the Now-ist symbol. So it's the cover of my book as well. But if you can see the symbol right there on the very top, it looks like a cross. But ultimately, to me, there's four beings. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 beings right there. And in the center, you see this massive explosion of light. So when you think of a cross, there's this linear horizontal line. We call that past future time. We call it chronological time. And there's this vertical line that's divine. It's an eternity. It's just infinite time. Where those two cross, you see this explosion of light. That's the now. So when I want to live in present moment awareness, I get out of physical time by crossification, by crossing that linear time where I'm thinking, gosh, I've got 20 appointments a day. I've got, everything that happened yesterday. In the future, I've got all this stuff going on. When I allow myself to get caught up in that linear time, that the crossification is not happening because I'm living in this past future. That's where most people have stress, because you're thinking about all the stuff you have to do. You're lamenting what is coming. You're worried about what happened and if it's going to be happening again. And we put our awareness in this illusion that Einstein called the illusion of time. And step one is awareness. When you take your awareness out of chronological time, you can put it in the vertical. The vertical is this moment now. You do it with the power of your awareness. So when I teach in my live events or coaching or whatever, step one is always awareness. The power of your awareness is the key to getting out of stress. The minute you know that you're stressed, that's the first step out of stress, because you're aware of it. And when you're aware of it, you can do something about it. Most people live in this droning life that they have, where they have the same habits. They wake up in their bed, they grab their phone, they go get the coffee to Starbucks or the Keurig or whatever. They have this routine that they do. And it kind of conditions your physiology, the cells of your body, the chemistry of your body, the energy field of your body to stay in this habitual way of living. I love William Wordsworth. He says, not choice, but habit rules the unreflecting herd. It's so good. I have to say it again. Not choice. Habit rules the unreflecting herd. So we're all ruled by our habits, not our choice, because we don't choose, because we just do the same thing we've always done. When you can consciously choose by the power of your awareness to make a different choice, then you start to change your life. So when you realize, oh my gosh, I'm in stress, so what do? You get in the vertical, you take a breath, you feel the energy fill your body, the tension in your hands, your neck, your shoulder, and you just, through a brief meditation, through a series of breaths, through an opportunity to get your awareness into the energy field of your body, ideally the heart center of your body. Because speaking of that crossification, you've got the horizontal and the vertical. Think about your body. Here are my arms stretched out. Here is the vertical. Here's the horizontal. What's in the very center, Evan?
The heart.
Yes, there it is. You put your awareness on your heart. You also create what's called coherence. When you get your thoughts to align with the energy field of your heart, and you do that by putting your awareness on your heart, you get out of time. It's the first step out of stress. And that's how you become timeless.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
That is beautiful. That, I think you couldn't have described it in a more resonant way, because I've noticed for me to enter into that space of timelessness, it's almost tapping into this purity, this love that ultimately is generated from the heart. And you're only capable of being recognized when we are in that heart-centered awareness. Because when we're operating in that linear past, present, future type of mentality, I think we are really drawn and bound by conditions and, like you're saying, habits and stories of the mind. And from that, can we truly be present with the purity, with the beauty, with the sacredness that is all around us? Because, I could go and I could make I don't know, if, let's say you're driving to work each day. How often do we sit and notice something different on our drive? I'm sure we could find something different every day if we looked, but
it's so true. Oh my gosh. So I went to my friend's, not sorry to interrupt you, but I had a quick antidote to your point, like something new. I went to my friend's 90th birthday party about a month ago, and she said the most profound thing. There's probably 75 people in the room. She threw this party for herself because she's a single person and she's lovely. She's my neighbor. She lives downstairs. We live in a condo here in Santa Barbara, my wife and I and daughter. And her name is Ria. And we go across the street to this little pavilion area where she had this party. And she grabbed the microphone. And the last thing she said, she says to everybody, because they asked her, what is the secret to being 90? What's this person, the nanogenarian who lives, in 90 years, it could go easily to 100. She says, when was the last time you did something for the first time? When was the last time you did something for the first time? And she's so brilliant because the brain has neuroplasticity, right? It needs to make neural connections, new connections. That's how you fight Alzheimer's. Why do you think they tell Alzheimer's patients to do puzzles, to learn an instrument, to go bird watching? She's keep firing new synapses. And that's what you're talking about, Evan, is to do something new. And you don't have to be an octogenarian, a nanogenarian, a centurion to do this. We do this as a habit. Once again, make this a habit. Plus the beginner's mind, right? The beginner's mind is when something's fresh, something's new, then something good can come into that space.
Absolutely. Well, and what's funny about that newness and beginner's mind is there's such a spontaneity and innocence that comes from that. You can't necessarily predict what that newness is going to bring. And if I were to show you my cover of the book again, this is the archetype of the fool inside of, in that space. And the fool represents sort of that innocence and spontaneity and stepping into the new without an expectation to what that realm is going to bring, right? You're sort of on the beginnings of this journey. And it's like
childlike bewilderment. That's one of the things I teach in the Now-ist is there's a chapter on childlike bewilderment. And at our live events, we teach exercises in childlike bewilderment, having people get to the newness, the beginner's mind, the freshest. I mean, Evan, look at little kids in the sandbox, drive by a playground. You'll just see little kids having fun. She's Wonder Woman. He's Batman. They don't have any disbelief. They truly don't care what people think of them. They're not caught up in how many friends they have or FOMO. They're just in the moment living as Now-ist. So little kids can teach you what you're talking about, how to live in that beginner, fresh newness, because they live there all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a certain like zen to it, if you will, in the present in children. And I think, that's why it's so difficult, for people to maybe get angry at a child in the way that they do an adult, right? There's a certain reverence that we still
Mm.
have for that childlike wonder. And I think it comes from our own yearning to return to that sort of space, a yearning to actually embody that type of, I would say, sacred, sacred wisdom that
You
comes
are
from it.
so right. Speaking of sacred wisdom and sagacious folks, like Emerson said, our birth is a sleep and a forgetting,
Mm,
right? So children are so close to divinity because they just came from the source that it's so fresh. But as you're born, you forget, and we get conditioned by this world. No, you and I and everybody listening and watching, we need to become more childlike in our days. We need to come light. We have to have levity. We have to have joy and abundance in everything we do, even though tough things happen. How do you approach them? Once again, what's the awareness? What's the power of your awareness? Are you going to get caught up in this story that you're going to keep telling yourself? Or are you going to try and say, no, do something new, fresh, the beginner's mind? I'm not going to be foolish about this, but I'm ultimately going to use the power of my energy field in my heart, power of my awareness, the power of my soul to connect to something fresh and new so I can get through this traumatic experience or this disappointing experience.
absolutely. And, I think that's so relevant for today, where there is really an increase in suffering and hardship, in the sense where I know there economically things are difficult for a lot of people right now. There's a lot of, it's still, I'd say, divisiveness people buy into in certain narratives and stories and whatnot. So as the external world feels a bit more chaotic and maybe some of the noise increases, it's like, all right, this is an opportunity to really show up from a space of presence in reverence. And, I've found within my own journey these past 2 years, and I'm certain you could speak to this on your own experience as you've began to embody these principles, especially in the moments, it's easy to be Zen when life is good, it's
Yeah.
calm, you're sitting on the
Yeah.
beach and, you're taking in the warmth of the sun and you have that external
Mm-hmm.
like validation of the Zen moment. It's a whole nother thing to
Yes.
embody this sense of timelessness when the walls are closing in, it feels like. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that in
That is true.
itself is the practice. That in itself is the true moments of embodying what we're talking about here and really stepping into it. And it takes a level of courageousness that ultimately is driven from the heart. It is driven from our willingness to step into the vulnerability. And I'd say trust in that spontaneity to be guided forward
Mm.
despite all this external noise and chaos.
You are so right on, my brother. That's just it. Most people are, it's kind of counterintuitive because you think your autonomic nervous system, which is your fight or flight nervous system, right? It's conditioning us to save our lives and
Mhm.
to run and hide or fight. But that autonomic nervous system is triggered all the time because it's from an email or for a disillusionment of a relationship or financial problems. And we're constantly in that fight or flight mode. So getting out of that mode has to be a new habit, a new way of living. Because last time we talked, we were in the pandemic. I don't think, were we? Our last podcast, was it
It
pre-pandemic?
was it was it was I think a few months after. I think it was around the summertime, because you had that sort
Mhm.
of period in 2020 where things, I guess, a lot of restrictions were lifted in certain areas and people were
Yeah,
kind of getting, so I think we were kind of in a period of normalcy despite it being 2020, because it definitely,
yeah,
there wasn't a ton of restrictions at that point. Yeah.
man. Because but think about the last 2 years since we spoke, how the world has changed and how the virus of fear became more powerful, more deadly than the actual virus itself.
Mhm.
And fear is something we can control.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to control us. It's like what are we focused on? How are we using our awareness? Are we connecting to the energy field of our body? Or are we getting caught up in this? Once again, fear, it's an acronym I learned from Tony Robbins a long time ago. He called it FEAR, false evidence appearing real. Because fear is
Mm.
just a thought form. It doesn't exist. It's not like you can't take this glass and fill it up with fear and say, hey, there's the fear. I'm just gonna, work on that fear and get that fear out. No, fear is just an illusion. So why does this illusion run our lives? Well, people that are in power know that that's a way to control people, but you have to take over the power that you have in your life. You have to take it over. You have to become one with everything that you want to manifest in your life. But fear is not a player in that at all.
Yeah.
Fear is a big player because it can manipulate people and control people. But wow, when you could take your power back by learning to live in the present moment as a way of life, to become somebody who is willing to take on the challenges in your life and then making them your spiritual practice. That's what I've done with the traumas in my life, the disappointments. I've made them my spiritual teachers. I've made it a spiritual practice. Because I don't know if you know, but during COVID, I was paralyzed. I was in the hospital for 21 days. Did we talk about
no,
that?
I don't think so. No.
Oh my gosh, that's after we spoke. Yeah. Real quick story. You got a minute?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So my wife turned 50 and we were on lockdown at that time. She turned 50 and her birthday's New Year's Eve and we were all locked down. I think it was 2021. It was 2022, actually, December 2022. Her birthday's New Year's Eve. So it's going to be 2021. So we left Santa Barbara because everything was locked down. We flew to Miami and they were having a party on the beach. Everyone was socially distanced. We thought, oh, perfect. You know, we will be safe because we're outside. Last minute, they said, oh, no, they have to shut us down because they thought it was going to be a super spreader event, I think.
Yeah.
And they moved it inside, which I thought was a bad idea. But it was my wife's 50th birthday. It was New Year's Eve. And we had flown all this way to celebrate her 50th because we couldn't have a party here. So I said, okay, we're going to do it. So we go inside. We had some friends. We stayed 20 feet away from everybody. We had masks on. It was safe. Long story short, we fly back and I test positive for COVID January 8th, which is Elvis's birthday. It's a very auspicious day. My wife tested positive. We gave our daughter COVID. We all had COVID. Well, they healed up in about a day and a half. And me, I was laid out in this bed for 10 days solid with 102 fever. So sick. I've never been that sick in my life. I hadn't had a cold or a flu in over a decade at that time. I don't get sick. I'm very healthy because when you have spiritual immunity, you know, it seeps into your cells and gives you physical immunity. Yeah. So physical immunity happens when you have spiritual immunity. So it's you know, you have spiritual immunity first. Your body, your cells age slower. You can repair yourself. These epigenetic expressions of your cellular activity changes. So living as a Now-ist is not only just a fun spiritual practice, but it's also very good for your health. So after 10 days, I couldn't figure out what's going on. I luckily broke my 102 fever, and the doctors couldn't do anything for you. When you have COVID, they say, hey, you just have to let it work its way through your system. So I was 10 days out of bed. Finally, I quarantined the appropriate amount of time, and I love to golf. So I went and played 10 holes of golf, came home, had a great dinner with my wife and daughter, went to bed. Next morning, I woke up and I was numb head to foot. Couldn't feel my hands, my face, my legs, my feet. I was totally numb. 2 days after that, I was paralyzed and I couldn't walk. Wow. My wife and daughter had to basically carry me into the car, take me to the emergency room. And, people couldn't go in the hospital at the time. So they wheeled me in a wheelchair. And that was the hardest goodbye I think I've ever had, because they didn't know if they were going to see me again, because, you can't go in. You didn't know how long it was going to be. So I'm literally, by the moments, becoming more paralyzed. I couldn't move. I couldn't move anything. And I have mild claustrophobia. I've always had it. I've worked through it, but it hasn't been this debilitating claustrophobia. But they put me in an MRI tube and they said, this is going to be a 4.5-hour MRI session because we don't know what's wrong with you. And I said, you have to knock me out. Drugs knock me out. I can't be in there that long. It's too long. So we can't knock you out because there's no way to, So I went through the next 4.5 hours of the deepest spiritual meditative experience I've ever had in my life, because I knew the only way to survive this was to go quantum, the fifth dimension, right? Mm-hmm. So sorry to plug your show, but it was just perfect time.
Yeah.
So I imagined myself hovering above the earth. I mean, in this, I call it the COVID cocoon. So, you've been to MRI too before, Evan?
Once, yeah.
Oh my God, it's tight.
Yeah.
And I couldn't move my hands, I had to lay there in this banging noise, and it was traumatizing, but I just had to continually breathe, chant, sing, imagining myself 3 miles above the earth. I imagined myself hovering above there, just seeing the blue line around the earth, seeing the black night with these little pinholes of stars, just billions of stars. I just allowed myself to hover up there, because the psychological state of hovering and weightlessness takes away your fear. Like imagine if you're, buoyed in beautiful salt water, when you're just at peace. So being confined and locked in this chamber for 4.5 hours, I had to go quantum. And that's the only way I survived it. Once again, the spiritual immunity that I created allowed me to get through this traumatic experience. So when I got out, they said they don't know, there's nothing wrong with me. I have a little arthritis in my back, probably for playing so much golf. And then they spinal tapped me, put this 12-inch needle in my spine, took out the spinal fluid and said, okay, we know what you have. You have this very rare condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome, where your immune system, after, I think fighting COVID, for whatever reason, they can't figure it out, 12 days later, attacked the myelin sheath, which is the insulation around your nerves. It was like piranhas was eating holes out of all of my myelin, and all the electricity in my body was out. That's why I was paralyzed. And they said, okay, we think we know what we're going to do. We're going to give you these 8 courses of immunoglobulin G, which is a naturally occurring. It takes 1,000 blood donors to spin out 1 vial, 1 little pint, and I had 8 pints. And it was these pints for $5,000 each. Is very expensive, medical care. But I laid in this bed paralyzed for 7 days, and every day at 4:30 they'd give me, a couple of these little vials. And then everybody in my family, was praying for my dad at the time, because my father had just had open heart surgery. He was 79 years old. And I didn't want them to pray for me. I want all of our energy to go to him, because he's the patriarch of our family. He's the rock. He's the man. He's our powerful, patriarch of our family. So I didn't want them to know how sick I was. But eventually we had to tell them. So everybody started praying for me. And with the incredible care of the doctors, with the quantum nature and meditative nature of knowing how I could heal my body, and all the flood of energy that was coming to me from prayer and good intentions, I made a miraculous recovery. After 21 days, I walked out of the physical therapy, and 2 months later, I was golfing again, when they thought that it would take about a year for me to get back to that state. So it was truly a miraculous healing. And I give it up to Source, the God, the divine energy field, and all the collective energy, and those wonderful doctors and nurses and therapists that helped, save my life.
Oh, that's beautiful. I didn't actually know that you had gone through that, and there was that, because that must have been after the first time we chatted. Because
Yeah, it was.
yeah.
But my whole point was I made that my spiritual practice. I made the hardest thing in my life my spiritual practice, and how I believe the key to all this, Evan. The one thing that I did that I was kind of downloaded this idea was, I'm paralyzed in the bed. The nurses are working so hard to come in, because during COVID, they had to strip off all their clothes every time they came in there, all their scrubs. They had to put new ones on every time, because they were considered contaminated. Because I was in a COVID ward with 90 other patients in the hospital. And, we were like the lepers of the time. It was just not the place to be. So I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to therapize every nurse, doctor, neurologist, oncologist, anybody who was coming through the door to check on me. I was going to see how I could help them. And I got better faster by just serving them. Even though I couldn't move, I would ask them about their day. How's their relationships? How's their finances? Like, I would do anything I could do, kept a very light energy, even though I couldn't even move my arms like this much. I was just in a bed for 7 days waiting for this healing to happen. And I got better faster. Then I went to physical therapy, same thing. PTs that work with me, I'm laughing, trying to be light, help them out. Talked about, I had one occupational therapist who was having a hard time with her relationship, worked with her for a week on it, and I got better faster. So we think when we get, in trauma, or we have hard times in our life, that it's all about us. But the reality is how can you serve in that? And your life, your healing will happen much faster. It'll go quantum, fifth dimension.
Absolutely. And that's the power of it. That's the beauty of it. How can we, with the swords hanging overhead, in a sense, and having the maybe fear present, trauma present, in your case, real, I'd say illness, or, physical stressor, like that's a perfect example of a physical ailment that, most people, they're in, I guess, so you're going to be put into almost a fear or fight or flight response to try and facilitate that healing, because naturally it's like, oh, if I lose my ability to move, the mind is going to create a whole stress and response to it. That's sort of a natural survival instinct. But how do you go beyond that? It's a true spiritual practice, and I think that is a key to, we talk about freedom, talk about liberation. That's what that is. That's where you find true freedom. And it's to be able to sit in what would be considered suffering. And if you look at the definition of compassion, if you break it up, calm is to be with, and then passion is suffering. So to be
I
compassionate,
didn't know that. I love that.
yeah, to be compassionate is to literally be with suffering and be present with it, not judging it, not trying to run away from it and have I guess, a sense of escapism in a lot of ways, which is a lot of our, you could have been in I guess, in an escapist fight or flight that whole time, but you chose to be present. You chose to actually really go quantum with it, which is what I would say creates that almost paradigm shift within yourself to find a spiritual liberation, which is honestly beautiful. And I think it demonstrates where people, because everybody has areas in their own life where they're struggling, or there is suffering present, or there's whatever it may be. It's like, all right, how do I continue to show up not just for myself but others in this circumstance and in this scenario? And it feels like you've kind of outlined the keys to that and how to really embody that on a deep level.
Truly, it's not easy, of course, to be paralyzed. Your brain and your body automatically wants to go into fight or flight, into fear mode, which is shutting you down, because fear shuts you down.
Yeah.
It doesn't open your heart, right? Fear makes you shrink. It makes you, clench up. All your energy field literally gets smaller. I mean, Dr. Joe Dispenza, do you know who Dr. Joe Dispenza is?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's brilliant. I love him. He's the spiritual scientist, I call him, because he's blurring that line between science and spiritualists, and he's just made it all one. And it's showed people how you have the power. I mean, he healed himself. I mean, my healing was pretty amazing, but he was hit by a Ford Bronco at 35 miles an hour, shattered like 3 or 4 of his vertebrae in his back. He needed this major surgery, and he didn't do any of it. He healed it with his quantum energy. He healed it with his spirit, his mind, his imagination. He healed his entire body through this without surgery. And he walked, and he's thriving, and he's changing the world right now through the power of his imagination, his ability through meditation. Got friends that have been to his 7-day, seminars, and people are healing themselves of crazy illnesses that doctors can't figure out how they're doing it. But he's doing it with the power of your imagination, the power of your energy field, meditation, how to light up these epigenetic centers, these lower levels of energy, how to bring them up. He calls them the energy centers, your chakras, how to bring them up and how to heal. So I used a lot of that to heal myself as well, because I've read and studied a lot of his work, and I use it in my one-on-one teaching. I use some of Dr. Joe's work to help my one-on-one clients teaching. And the ability to heal yourself within your own energy field is remarkable. It's so untapped. And that's why he's doing some groundbreaking work right now, that you can literally shift illnesses, limitations, blocks in your system through the power of your meditative energy, and how to upregulate these energy centers and fire them off. And he's healed people of blindness, cancer, Epstein-Barr, lupus, Crohn's disease, so many Parkinson's, crazy diseases you think aren't even possible to be healed.
Right.
And he does it in his 1-week seminars.
There's almost like a story that we have about a lot of these illnesses, or a story we have about, what is the body's capability, or we've really, I would say, normalized a certain level of the illness, and what the pattern of it is, and what's curable, what's reversible, what's the standard, right? So it almost,
oh my gosh,
yeah,
we are more powerful than we know, Evan, and the unknown is where the growth is. And we're so afraid to go into that unknown because we crave certainty. Human beings crave certainty, right? And your autonomic nervous system always goes to the worst case scenario. Like most people, when they come up with trauma or an accident, they always think, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that's going to happen, because we're conditioned to do that through our autonomic nervous system. Because if you can focus on the worst possible thing, anything less we can overcome. So you always go to the end thinking, okay, gosh, well, I won't be able to work again, but at least this will happen. Or, my marriage is broken up, but at least this will happen. Like we go to the worst case scenario as a habit. What I've learned through the Now-ist teachings and through practicing is like you learn to not focus on the worst. You focus on what it is you want with your imagination, with all your 5 senses engaged in that end, thinking from the end, not about the end, because the power of your imagination, the power of your intention is what changes your life, because the law of attraction is never broken. It's a universal law. So whatever you focus on expands. Your energy flows where your focus goes. If you're putting your energy on the worst case scenario, you're shrinking. The key is the heart just wants to expand. The soul wants to expand. It loves immensity. It wants space. How often do you allow yourself to shrink because your thoughts and your mind are focusing on what you don't want? It's counterintuitive. You need to go to the unknown. It's truly where the growth is.
Right. And that's where you can create and imagine exactly what it is that you want and exactly what, I would say your soul and destiny are aligned for. A big teaching that I've embraced lately is that I think we're so used to learning through suffering. We're so used to learning through pain or through stress. And, I think there's a certain level of necessity that suffering plays and the hardship plays and overcoming challenges, right? There's a lot you learn about yourself in that space. But even within a space where it feels like the walls are closing in, can you still choose, instead of making pain itself the teacher or challenge itself the teacher, can love be the teacher, right? Can we embrace that love is the ultimate teacher and going to be what guides us forward? And I think by embracing that and making that almost your conscious intention, throughout, it can be in any moment, any day, and whatever, however people go about setting intentions, that's going to open up the possibility for greater love to continue to flow in. Because, if we're so used to learning through heartache or pain, and maybe we've made that our spiritual practice unknowingly, and we're going to continue to bring that type of teachings in. And I guess if that's somebody's path, that's somebody's path, but it's not, we don't have to choose that. We don't have to continually choose to I would say be in that stressor state. And it's like, can we open ourselves up to the greater love that's possible? And within that, there's an infinite realm of timelessness, like we talked about earlier, that we can expand into. And who we are, the story of who we are begins to take on a whole new form, and you can actually recognize that I am, and really embody that on a deeper level.
You're so right, brother, because once again, back to the Wordsworth quote, not choice, but habit rules the unreflecting herd. We have to choose differently, but we have to make it a habit. We have to make love the natural choice, because love is what you are. Love is what all you are, truly. That's what you come from, what you return to, the great source. We go back into the oneness, but we've never separated from it. Fear is what separates us from it. The love is always with us. We are never separate from the love, because we are from love. We are created in love. We will return to love. It's a beautiful book by Marianne Williamson's Return to Love. I'm going through her wonderful program right now. Highly recommended. It's A Course in Miracles 365. So we're on day like 310 today or something. But every day since the beginning of 2022, I've gone every morning. She has like this 3 to 10 minute video that she does, and she reads the lessons of A Course in Miracles. And it's incredible, because I don't know if you know about the book of A Course in Miracles. Have you ever read it or studied it?
I haven't read it, no.
Oh my gosh, it's a highly recommended book. On all the books I read, it's been very powerful. And I've read the entire book. And then there's a workbook where it's for students, right, to go through. So she reads these lessons and then she talks about them. And it's just a wonderful way to start your day. It's called Mornings with Marianne. And the new year is coming. So I encourage everyone to go to Marianne Williamson's website and sign up for next year, because what a great way to prime your day. And talk about a new habit, right? Choosing a habit. Like for me, I have a consistent habit. Every morning I wake up, I start with gratitude. I say, gratitude prayers before I get up. Then I go to my slider and I do the Now-ist meditation, which is this 1 minute meditation, primes me for the day. I listen to Marianne's 1 minute. I'll do some, light calisthenics, push-ups, sit-ups, just priming the physical body. And imagine what happens to the cellular structures and the energy fields of my body. I've been doing this for like a decade. This has been my ritual. And drink a lot of water. I just prime myself. So imagine how my day goes, how the cells of my body, how the energy field of my body has been primed now for the day. So I have 20 appointments. Imagine how I can approach the day. Once again, back to the habits. You can make love a way of life. You can make oneness, connections to the present moment, a way of life. Stress and fear do not have to be players in your life. They are there because you've chosen to set yourself up, and it's by a series of habits, by a series of how you live, to get caught in the trap of negative fear, mind-made stories that aren't even true. They're just habits and ways of life that you have consistently given energy to them. Don't give it. Take your power back. Live back into the present moment, because that's where you make new choices.
Absolutely. And, I think even using the word power is appropriate because, I think we have a misconstrued definition of power. We think it's control. We think it's almost being at the top of some sort of illusionary hierarchy, when true power is the actual surrender into this deeper embodiment of love. It's a surrender into this space that you're talking about. And through surrender, taking control and priming yourself, there is an element of control in that, but you almost surrender to and let go of what is no longer serving you. There's both ends of that. You are gaining a deeper level of control, which I think people in a way want that. I think they use external seeking of external control as a way to make up for a lack of feeling of inner control. Ultimately, that's usually where that stems from. But you do take control of yourself, but you let go and you surrender, and you enter into that flow.
You're so right, Evan. Thinking about surrender, imagine, and we live across the street from the ocean. So if you go in the ocean and you want to experience water, like I was saying early, you can't just go grab water and say, I want to experience water. I'm going to grasp it and hang on to it. And I'm going to want to swim in it. I'm going to swim really fast and, just with no form, no style, no sense of oneness, surrendering to the ocean, becoming one with the ocean. That's how you experience water. That's how you experience the ocean. When these great swimmers, you see their technique is so perfect and they just fly. My wife's a swimmer. They fly through the water, and you see these people with bad techniques, they're going half as fast. They're experiencing this ocean because they're one with it. They're moving like ocean. Their technique is it's effortless. So it's an analogy for life. You're so right. The art of surrender. It's an action. You think surrender just means letting go and giving up. That's not what surrender is at all. Mm-hmm. Surrender is giving up the story, giving up the energetic power that you give, the universe, to give the world, give this time-bound self, where you take your power and you give it away. Your power is the energy field of your body. The power is your decisions to make new choices in the present moment. The power in you in surrender is letting go and letting God, as they say in the recovery movement, where you don't get so caught up in, I've got this outcome, I want to get from A to B, and I'm going to work my tail off and do all these things and reverse engineer my goals and make it happen. Well, what if you chose to use the power of your intention? And one of the greatest gifts you've ever been given is the power of your imagination. Every day before you wake up, you just lay there and imagine, for instance, I don't know, what's something you want to manifest in your life, Evan?
Oh, wow. Well, one particular thing that I would like to manifest, I would say a unconditional love and partnership, in a sense.
Perfect. Awesome. I've worked with so many people on this. My good friend who was just here for Halloween. I love Halloween. I'm talking about childlike bewilderment. We had this wonderful Halloween, dressed up and had a blast. Mm-hmm. But he's a single man, and he just wanted to attract, a relationship in his life. We're like a soulmate. He's been off the market for a while. I said, okay, buddy. He was here for a week staying with us. I said, for 7 days, I want you, before you get out of bed and before you go to sleep at night. So when your mind's in this very low semi-somnolent state, it's when you're this theta delta brainwave frequency, your subconscious mind is very programmable. So before you go to bed, when you get in that really semi-somnolent state, I want you to imagine this woman. And he described her. She was like a brunette, wore a black dress, had brown eyes. And they imagined they were going to dinner, and they were sitting down at the table, and they were cheersing, they were drinking champagne, and he fed her a straw. We went through this whole 5 sense simulation where he could hear her voice. He could smell her perfume. He touched her when he hugged her. He sensed that they tasted the food. He'd hear these sounds of the restaurant around him. So he would do this every night before he would go to bed. And he did in the morning before he'd get up. He'd go through this, I don't know, maybe 2-minute kind of meditative action of imagining with all 5 of his senses in the quantum, this woman. So the greatest part of the story is he did it because I held him accountable. He's not really the best at sticking to habitual things. And he's a little bit late sometimes. And he's my best buddy. I love him. He's my soul brother.
Mm.
But for this exercise, I held him accountable for 7 days. So on the 7th day, we were done working on this job together, and he and I went out to dinner. So we go out to dinner, and there's just the two of us at the hostess stand. And, we wait for our table, and this long-haired brunette girl in a black dress walked up and started flirting with my buddy. And she was, "Oh, my friend's not here yet. Can I sit with you guys?" And like, just this stranger, right? Exact description of what he had imagined. So the universe likes speed. You've ever heard that? I love that quote. The universe likes speed, because if you don't take it, like the book for the Now-ist, the idea for the Now-ist, if I didn't take this download, inspiration to create this teaching in the world, a year later, I would walk into a Barnes and Noble and see the Now-ist on the shelf, because the universe likes speed. It'll move on to the next thing. So he was so shocked. She's sitting by herself. We sit down. She's kind of looking towards him. He was so nervous and so shocked. He didn't take action. And it moved on. The friend actually showed up. He had this opportunity. But I offer it up to you. You have to use, or anybody viewing, listening, you use the power of your imagination, your subjective attention. Before you go to bed, when your brain is very programmable, your subconscious mind is accessed through these theta, delta brainwave frequencies. Whatever you place there is what the universe will use to conspire in physical time for you. So I've manifested avalanches of abundance in my life, emotionally, socially, spiritually, financially, in my teachings, through using this same concept. I'll go to bed. I'll imagine, if I'm a realtor and a property manager, I'll imagine this house that I've got listed. I want it to sell it. So I'll imagine it's Christmas time, and I'll see the Christmas tree, and I'm walking over to give him a Christmas present because we've closed escrow, and I'll smell the bread cooking, and I'll feel the sense of Christmas and the family love, and I'll taste the eggnog they're handing me. And then what do you know? I'll sell the house to a family very similar to the description that I imagined maybe a month later. It's the active side of infinity, as Carlos Castaneda said. He brilliantly called it the active side of infinity. You can control it, but you have to use your subjective attention, program your imagination so the universe can conspire with you to manifest what it is you place your attention on.
That's, I think what you're describing is the how exactly we are interacting with the quantum at all times, and how we are a direct part of this higher mind, really. And if you,
the fifth dimension, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you can really tune yourself to the frequency, you have the ability to consciously co-create reality and bring in exactly what, because the example of the partnership, right? And the bringing that woman into the life, I'm certain that, there's a reason she felt called to go into that restaurant at that time. She was
They were tuned.
Right.
They were tuned.
Exactly.
She was tuned to the frequency that he imagined. Time is that illusion, Evan. You've got to realize that this time thing is something that doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve you in any way. You have to go quantum. You have to live in that fifth dimension. You have to put your attention, your imagination, and your focus, your energy to manifest from that space. I mean, yes, anybody can be a millionaire. You can just hoard all your money, put it under your mattress, screw everybody out of whatever, you can do that. It takes time, and like anything, it just takes time, and you can do it, but that is not abundance. Abundance comes from giving it away, just being free with your energy, focus on what it is you want, come from a place of service, not what's in it for me, not for your ego, and your life will be abundant. So much abundance, you can't even contain it.
And I think what I've actually started to realize in terms of working with abundance is our birthright. We're meant to be abundant. And Truly. It's really just the programs that we're conditioned into that create a sense of lack. And even if there's lack, it's just an abundance of lack,
Exactly. Whatever you focus on will get bigger. That's just simple law of attraction, simple physics, right?
Right.
Just whatever you focus on expands.
Right.
So focus on what it is you want. And I love Abraham Maslow, Evan. He is they call him the father of self-actualization. He says, you become independent of the good opinion of other people and simultaneously detached from outcome, you've become self-actualized. And that's what Dr. Wayne Dyer, who was one of my greatest teachers, taught profoundly, taught me early on in my spiritual quest. that you have to become self-actualized, because that's how you serve people. That's how you serve yourself, is detaching, because we're in this FOMO, this fear of missing out society, the social media juggernaut, right? We care what people think about us too much. We check in with our likes, our view count, all that stuff. But the reality is you want to become independent of those people. That's what Abraham Maslow was speaking about. Become independent of the good opinion of other people and detach from outcome. Because the self, the big S self, the true self, the highest self, that's what needs to expand, not the low, small s self. That's the ego.
Absolutely. And when you can be self-identify beyond the ego and with that higher self, that is exactly where you become a conscious creator, and you are of service without the necessary. I mean, I think sometimes we get caught up in the mind game, the ego game of, we almost make spirituality a new form of ego, and we want to be of service
Truly.
egoically. And it's so
Absolutely.
when you can detach from that, that's where I'd say the world opens up in a lot of ways. And I like to think about, what are the possibilities, not just on an individual level, but on a collective scale, when we start really consciously co-creating from this quantum space, and we remember our birthright to abundance. We remember the conscious connection we have to this higher mind. What are the possibilities? And it's really beautiful, because there is enough for everybody. There is enough. Abundance is infinite, right? And how we choose to live, I'd say live our lives, if we do it abundantly, there's enough to go around. So what are the possibilities for the world when we all tap into that abundance? I sit with that, and I just sort of feel it within my heart. I don't know exactly what it'll look like necessarily, but I can certainly feel it within myself. And I believe that is what we have an opportunity to move into, as I think people's stories are starting to become uprooted a little bit, as there is a bit more feeling of pressure and the walls closing in. It's like, all right, how are we going to respond? Well, let's remember how abundant we are and how much love is
Oh my gosh.
present.
I love teachers, spiritual teacher. I love quotes. And I think of this quote, and I wanted to pull it up real quick and read it to you and the viewers and listeners, because it was Samuel Taylor Coleridge has this wonderful quote. He says, speaking about abundance and how do you manifest in this world, and how do you, from the quantum, the fifth dimension, how do you bring abundance into your physical world? And he says, what if you slept? And what if in your sleep you went to heaven and there plucked a strange and beautiful flower? And what if when you awoke, you had the flower in your hand? Ah, what then? Isn't that beautiful? And that's manifesting from the quantum, from Samuel L. Coleridge. I mean, I love that quote, because it teaches you. And he's talking about, when he wrote that, I don't know, it was in the early 1900s or late 1800s. He's like, who is this crazy guy? Like, you can't manifest stuff from nothing. You can't go to a dream and then wake up in the morning with the flower in your hand. He's right on the money. I can't tell you how many times I've just had a thought or imagination and it focused, and synchronistically, the universe gives me these spiritual breadcrumbs, and they physically will show up. You are that powerful. You can manifest from the quantum, and that's the challenge. But you can do it, and you need to continually focus on doing it, because that's how you'll change your life. When you get the faith, or I call them the 17th chapter of my book, the Now-ist, is the journey journal. I've got 40 examples in there of the Samuel L. Coleridge type of manifestation that synchronistically occurred. And you need to keep a journal. I call it the journey journal. If you come to the Now-ist Experience live events, I give them out as part of your swag bag. And through the people manifest through their journals, they keep notes and such. But I ask them when they leave the event, and make this your journey journal, write in there synchronicity events that have happened, so you can bolster your faith when you feel down or lost, or like, stuff's not happening in my life. I'm not abundantly living right now. But then you go back to those times where you did it, and it gives you that bolster that you need of your spirit to believe in yourself again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I very much have gotten in the habit of following the synchronicities. I mean, it's a developed habit, certainly. You have to develop and cultivate that trust and that faith. But it's brought me to exactly where I am. It's what started my podcast. It's what
I love it.
all of these different areas in my life of where I am now, certain fruits of abundance that have come in. in various forms. It's all from trusting in the unknown and trusting in the synchronicity. That's where all of the creative junctions have manifested from. It's never been a logical, rational process by any means whatsoever. Like I've had to really abandon that.
You're amazing that way, brother. I'm inspired by that, because the unknown is where the growth is, and you're not afraid to go to the unknown. Most people crave that certainty, but you need to expand yourself into that unknown. That's the only way you're going to grow.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you're growing, brother.
I appreciate that. It feels like it. I've noticed certainty in itself. It's one of those things. I feel it's an illusion. When you crave it, but you can never truly obtain it in a sense, right? I mean, what if you're looking for certainty in one area of your life, and okay, maybe you get an assurance from another person, but what is that actually bringing in? And we generally crave the next level of certainty. Like
Yeah.
it's a sort of a
That's not really
perpetual.
growth, is it? That's not
No,
expansion. That's not
no,
growth.
no, it's safe. It's safe. And
Yeah.
a lot of people like the safe option, the comfort option. And I think there's a time and place to play it safe. But in a way, we're almost synchronistically led to know when we play it, when to play it safe, right? It's sort of that.
You're exactly right. And I constantly encourage people to just go to the unknown. The unknown is where the growth is. Take that first leap and that step of faith in the unknown world. That's the only way you're going to build up, the synchronicities, the spiritual immunity, if you will, is to stretch yourself. We have to expand. The soul wants to expand. The soul craves immensity. If you're not feeding the soul, I mean, you're just going to shrink. And you don't be surprised when you don't have an abundant, fulfilled life, because you got to take those risks. You got to push out into this world and expand yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's almost a level of radical responsibility we can take in the co-creation process. And once we're
You've got to
actually
take it.
once we're actually able to, then life itself takes on a whole deeper meaning. It's like, all right, well, yeah, maybe in certain areas, it's like, wow, I co-created this. And there's a level of like, wow, I can't believe I did that to myself.
That's
Oh my
it.
gosh.
That's why you write it down in your journey journal. You write it down so you have it. Because then, I mean, sometimes, say, hey, I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm not perfect. I'm a human being just like you. I mean,
Yeah.
I just have my book, The Now-ist, is a spiritual memoir of how I found the present moment to be the most powerful time in my life, the powerful moment in my life to change my life. And I just was so excited about it because it's helped me heal myself from paralysis. It's allowed me to have avalanches of abundance because I didn't get caught up in my childhood trauma. I'm not caught up in the worry of the future. I live skillfully 90% of my day in the present moment. 10% stuff hits the fan. I just know how to correct quickly because I find, stress and overwhelm and time so undigestible. I love to be consuming myself in the present moment.
Absolutely. And that's where the magic happens ultimately at the end of the day. And once you can even take responsibility for the parts of our lives where maybe we're creating unconsciously, it creates a level of empowerment to say, well, if I created all of these circumstances, that means I can create a turnaround. That means I can create exactly what I want now because I know I did that. So let me take this level of responsibility and let me take this
That's it.
level of
It's a
empowerment.
way of life. It's not a religion. It's just a practice of living. And I've just found it to be the most powerful thing I can do. It's my purpose. It's my dharma. I'm just honored and to serve people. So if people are interested in going deeper, they just go to billymandarino.com. I have free teachings. We have 500 plus YouTube videos on Billy Mandarino, the Now-ist YouTube channel, free teachings. Just so much I want to bring to this world in presence and in peace to do my part. We all just have to do our part. And I feel like that's my mission.
Oh, and that's beautiful. And you definitely are doing your part, Billy, which is,
Thank you, brother. I
why.
so appreciate being on a show like this where we're talking about turned on, high level, energetic concepts and feelings and thoughts that are out of the norm, out of the normal news. Because once again, we're kind of in that unknown. The world needs to kind of speed up to get to this frequency. Their lives, the stress would melt away. I do a lot of teaching for middle school kids because their teen suicide has gone up so high after the pandemic. There's so much emotional intelligence that's suffering in them. I just want to serve that segment of the world as well as everyone else, because it's about how can you serve, not what's in it for me.
That's the beauty of it. And when you do give, you ultimately receive in return. And, it doesn't even necessarily have to be, I mean, things like finances, those will take care of themselves in a lot of ways when you put your faith into this, but you receive something deeper than that. And you receive such a pure fulfillment and
Well,
joy.
I love all spiritual teachers, and Jesus being a wonderful spiritual teacher in my life, he says, give and it will be given you. Good measure, tamped down, running over will be returned to your lap. For the measure that you give, it will be measured back to you. I forget what part of the New Testament that's from, but I love that quote. And I think about abundance, financial abundance, or any kind of abundance. Just give from your heart, give freely, and it will return to you. Because basically, Jesus is talking about the law of attraction.
Yeah.
Just people don't know it, because back then they didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah. The new age term for it, but it's a
Yeah,
very old and rooted
it is. It's been
principle.
around for thousands of years.
Right. And it's sort of at the root of so many of the mystic and religious traditions.
Truly.
So Billy, I guess as a sort of a wrap up question, or just an idea I'd like to, I'd like to hear your thoughts on. I would love to say, if you were to open up, this is, in theory, it feels like we're moving into a new paradigm of being on a collective scale, right? I do think there's a shift occurring. Let's say you were to open up the door to this new reality, of abundance, of people really connected on a quantum scale. And we sort of are really remembering that we are all interconnected with one another. If you open up the door to that reality and you step into it, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What is that embodiment of this reality? I mean, you can speak to it on an individual scale, certainly. I think you're kind of already embodying in that space. But if you were to see that on a collective scale, what do you see as the foundation? How are we all, what does that organization look like? I don't know, how do you play into this
I
new
just
realm?
I just went into that, Evan. As you're speaking, thank you for that gift. Actually, you just gave me a great gift. You didn't even know it. I allow myself, as you're speaking, to go there in my imagination, because once again, I believe that's the greatest gift we've been given, because whatever you put your attention on becomes real in your experience, because your imagination can create whatever, right? That's why I believe one of the greatest gifts God has given us, because we have the ability to manifest from that place. And what you described is truly what I am working for. My mission is to create this legion of Nowists, if you will, people that live in this, quantum, fifth dimensional, sixth, seventh dimensional realm, where we are all one, where I can imagine the planet. And I did imagine while you were talking about this light field that circles the planet. That's not the light that you see from space now. It's a much brighter light. It's a white light. It's not the blue light that we see from the ocean reflection. It's more of a white light. And we all come from white light. We come from the purest form of light. We are all on this ascended master training. And I see in this world that we now live in, this utopian world that you just manifested and brought into my awareness, that we all connect on a telepathic level, because we're all one. Words, I could convey an idea to you. If you're in New York and I'm in Santa Barbara, through a thought. There's no separation in time. We move at the speed of thought. The earth is perfectly healed. It's white because everything is this crystalline energy that doesn't come from consumption. It comes from, how can I serve? How can we serve each other? There's no war. There's no hunger. There's no strife. It all comes from the ability of us to connect in that service of the highest self, which is the big S self, which we are all realized in that same self, that we are all one. So there's no separation. So why would I do anything to harm you? Because I'll be harming myself. And we live in this utopian. And then what happens is that energy field that is planet Earth then spreads out to a universal level. It's like the conversation you and I are having right now. We're helping people live at lower levels of energy without them even knowing it, because we're having a very switched on, tuned in conversation. Because the energy field of this is spreading out beyond just where we're you and I in this small confined space. Because when you could have higher levels of energy, conversations and intentions, and serving people from a place of, what's in it for me, but out of love, you shift the world. And that's why when I start all of my seminars, I start with the power of the intention. And my intention when I get in a room of people is, how can we elevate these 75 people in this room to such a degree that we shift those living at lower levels of energy? And the study was done like in the 90 or 2006. It was the Maharishi University. They did this study, right? Where meditators, right, focused on, I think it was Washington, D.C. for like 2 months. And the crime rate in that time frame dropped like 30%. Homicides dropped like 30%. And they studied it in a control setting, knowing that the Maharishi effect was these meditators, like 30 meditators. And they just focused on love, compassion. They surrounded this city with like this bubble of light, white light. And what do you know? It shifted. So I see, to answer your question, I see that not happening in this utopia or this act of revelations from the Bible, wherever the earth has ended and it has to be the new earth, which Eckhart Tolle wrote his second book called The New Earth. He speaks of that. I believe that can happen here on earth. It just takes conversations like this. It takes people willing to go to that unknown place and to serve people at a level that's so divine that we all shift.
And it makes it an inevitability as we continue.
It does. There's the quantum. It's timeless.
Yes, exactly. And it cannot be destroyed. It can't, that in a way, it really puts a, when you remember what the true nature of this is, there is absolutely no room for fear or worry or anxiety about the direction we're moving or whatever it may be. Like there's a deeper knowing of this at the core, at the root of who we are and what we're.
And we're all there. We're all there all the time. We just suppress it. We just shrink it down through fear and through agenda and through past trauma that we've never worked through, childhood trauma that we've never worked through. If you can free yourself from all that past and do the deep work on yourself, we can all get to that level of awareness where you just want to serve. Mm-hmm. Because like, as I was saying in the quote from Jesus, like you just give away because the more you're giving, the more you're receiving, and your life will become so balanced and free that you'll just want to serve all the time. Yeah. And if everybody acts that way, imagine our planet would be this white light. It wouldn't be blue anymore. There'd be so much higher levels of consciousness coming off it. We'd overcome the reflection of the 70% of the blue from the sea through the light from within. It's so much more powerful.
Oh, that is so beautiful to think about and really know as a truth and know as an inevitability, because I think we are moving towards that. I know we're moving towards that.
The new earth started. It started. And I 2012, the Mayan calendar said the earth was going to end. I believe the old earth did end and the new earth started in 2012. And it was the new earth of consciousness, higher levels of consciousness. These type of conversations weren't happening in the 60s and 70s very often, right? No. In the 80s and the 90s, they weren't happening that much. They were starting to. I mean, the spiritual teachers have always been around. The great spiritual teachers have elevated the planet, but we've gone to a different realm. With the new earth it's being born right now.
And that means it's already here, just waiting waiting to be recognized.
It is. So just step into that earth, but step into it every day as a way of life, through your habits, through how you treat other people, kindness, love, giving. Just focus on the light. Be the light of the world.
And I think
Jesus said, I am the light of the world. He also said, you are the light of the world. Be the light.
And don't be afraid to embody it and just own it in its fullest sense. I think a powerful intention to have is to choose not to repress that divine light. Just let it flow in naturally, and let it be the guide. And how life unfolds after that, like the miracles will manifest, and
they will. You just have to have the faith to just go into that unknown. That's where the growth is.
So beautiful. We could go on about this.
Yes, we had a good podcast today. We had some. Thank you for hanging in there, everybody. Appreciate your presence, truly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and Billy, we're gonna have to do another one. Let's not wait 2 years in between.
Yes, you know me. I love to serve. I love to share this message, this light with the world.
Absolutely. And is there anywhere, I know you already sort of mentioned your websites, and we've talked about your book, and is there anywhere you'd like to send the listeners in particular? And if you have, any events or things coming up that you'd like to make note of, how are you planning to serve for the rest of the year? Is there things coming on up for you? And,
thank you for that, Evan. The Now-ist Experience Live was just this past May. And that was a year to produce. It was our second Now-ist Experience Live. So right now, if you go to billymandarino.com, you'll see there's a free vision challenge there. You can sign up for my newsletter through that. There's all kinds of free teaching on my social media. We had the live event. We filmed the whole event. So we have the event through 8 different modules. You can download the course. You can go through. You also can click on the very top banner of my website. It's the Now-ist Experience Live. And for your viewers, write this down. There's a promo code. You can get it for free for a limited time. If you just type in the promo code section, once you click the little banner, you type in TNEL22. That stands for the Now-ist Experience Live. It's just an acronym, TNEL22. Type in the promo code. You can see all 20 hours of my band performing, the teaching, 2-day event for free. My gift to you. Happy holidays.
Oh, well, what a wonderful offering. Like, that's truly beautiful. And I highly encourage everybody who's listening to head on over to your website and, take advantage, because that's truly, the concepts that we talked about in this podcast. I think this is almost, in a way, this plants the seeds to go into a teaching like that and really unpack some of the deeper level, what this actually looks like on a practical scale, and really bringing it into awareness. And I think that's what you're doing with your work, and why I hold such reverence for your work, because this is I think this is the most powerful stuff we can be doing right now, out of anything really. So
well, thank you so much, Evan. I'm just honored to be here of service to you and your audience, and I thank you for having me as a guest. And I wish you happy holidays, peace in the new year, and just go find somebody to serve that cannot even thank you. Just go serve. Go find that homeless person, speak to the elderly person. This holiday season, I'm going to throw out a challenge to people, because loneliness is a killer. So many people this holiday season, suicides go up tremendously during the holiday season, because I think people get focused on the loneliness, what they don't have, bad memories from past holidays. I don't know. But I just know that it happens. And so this holiday season, I just encourage everybody to go find someone to serve that's alone. Just call them up, text them, send them a book, send them a gift, go sit with them and read. Help that homeless person on the street, give them your leftovers. Give them some of your money. I want to see if we can shift people this holiday season specifically through random acts of kindness.
Oh, beautiful. And I think that I'll walk hand in hand with you in that intention as well.
Thank you, brother.
Bring that same energy, because I think you're exactly right.
I would love that. That would be my mission this holiday season, truly.
Absolutely. And I'll make it mine as well. And I encourage everybody listening to make that their mission and see where they can serve, because everybody is unique in their own capacity, which is
amen. And whatever it is, just go with your inspiration.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you all the listeners for tuning on in, and we shall see you all in the next episode. So long, everybody.